Yeah, let's look at the defense. Obviously, underperforming last year. Supposed to be one of the best defensive lines in the country, missing its best player for most of the season after the TCU game, but still coming up with some monumental efforts late in the season, finally getting productivity as some of the guys stepped up and played much better and developed after early season poor performances. So what do we have for 2019 in your eyes?
I don't know. I think anybody who saw the Week 11 game against Maryland would say, when they gave up 51 points but still won the game, that the poor performances lasted all season long for the defense. They set a new record in the entire history of Ohio State football for points allowed per game and yards allowed per game. And those broke records set in 1988 and 1989 separately. One was yards, one was points. Those were the first 2 years of the John Cooper era. They were 4-6-1 in Cooper's first year in 1988. So that'll give you the depth of how bad things were, that they broke records that a 4-6-1 team set back in 1988 in terms of yards and points allowed. Ryan Day gutted the defensive staff after the way that the defense played last year. Greg Schiano not retained, Bill Davis gone. It was Grinch leaving to go to Oklahoma, and Taver Johnson not back as the cornerbacks coach. The only guy who survived the purge was Larry Johnson, the world-renowned defensive line coach. I always put a plug in for Larry Johnson every time because he is he deserves the Broyles Award, I think, one of these years, but you may or may not get it because it always goes to a Venables or a, de jure, the hot coordinator of the year. But at any rate, what's going to happen this spring is they're going to go in a completely new direction on defense with Jeff Hafley coming over from the 49ers, Al Washington, Greg Madison coming from Michigan, Matt Barnes coming from Maryland. They're going to put their stamp on the defense, probably make some changes to the scheme. And when you think about it, basically it gives anybody who's on the defensive side of the ball, whether they were a starter in 2018 or not, some hope that if they come in with these fresh coaches coaching that unit, and if they perform at a high level this spring, they will have a chance to get on the field, whether they've ever played in 2017 or 2018 previously. So to me, I think for those kids, it's got to be kind of a refreshing thing that they have a chance. I think the number one guy when my defensive – I'm going to tip my hand, but one of my top guys on my defensive list is going to be Baron Browning. And he was a national top 15 recruit 2 years ago. And boy, time flies when you're having fun. He's been on scholarship there 2 years, been injured. He missed spring last year with a shoulder injury, missed some time late last season with an undisclosed injury that no one ever really unearthed what the issue was with that, missed a couple games. And he's kind of been sitting behind Tuff Borland at middle linebacker. Perhaps he could play outside linebacker. We don't know. But if Tuff Borland wins the middle linebacker job, Baron Browning's going to have to look outside to find some work because, he's moving into his junior year, a national top 15 recruit. And, if he wants to be in the NFL, as most top 15 recruits probably do, he's going to need to get on the field at Ohio State. So this spring is critical in his development. They had a couple guys. Pete Werner played one of the outside spots. Maybe he can threaten him for that job. I think Malik Harrison, if anybody on the defense is set, Malik Harrison is probably set. I would say Chase Young is set at defensive end. I would say Robert Landers is set at defensive tackle. Jordan Fuller is set at safety. And Damon Arnett, I'd put him kind of on the spot as well because he passed up a chance to go to the NFL and come back. And yet he had major issues last year in terms of giving up big plays, getting flagged for penalties. He needs to go back to the drawing board this spring and figure out how to play clean press coverage because if he goes through those same issues this fall, they're going to pull him out of there and put a Sean Wade or Jeffrey Okuda, one of those other guys in there. They're not going to hesitate. These are new coaches. I mean, Hafley and Barnes are going to coach the secondary, and they're not beholden to anybody, particularly a senior they didn't recruit in Arnett. So he's going to have to go back and tighten up his game. So I put him on the spot this spring as well. couple other ones I think about. Haskell Garrett played at Bishop Gorman High School in Nevada with Tate Martell, came in with him 2 years ago, has played sparingly the last couple of years as a backup on the defensive tackle for Ohio State. And again, I use the saying, time flies when we're having fun. He and Baron Browning are now in their third year of eligibility. These are the money years. This is when, I mean, if you ever pop off a great junior year, you could leave to go to the NFL after this season. I think it's unlikely for either one of those guys at this point. But they were both considered top 50 recruits coming out of high school. So maybe a little bit of a disappointing start to their career, but I think those two guys in particular are guys I would put on the spot. Pete Werner, the guy I mentioned a moment ago. You know, Al Washington is coming in to take over the linebackers from Bill Davis, and he's going to pop in, I would think, a few of the tapes from how the team played in 2018, and also be watching how they practice here this spring. And if you're not making plays and you're not getting off blocks and stopping the run and these kind of things and being a rugged linebacker, you're probably not going to play. So I think in Pete Werner's case, I would say that Bill Davis and Greg Schiano and the coaching staff, you know, they were at practice every day. They played the guys who were the most consistent every day, day in and day out. And yet when you get onto the field, Ohio State struggled mightily at times, stopping the run, gave up, you know, long running plays, two of them to Maryland, I think another one early in the season to TCU, I believe. So they had issues, you know, throughout the season in terms of the running game and supporting in the pass. I don't want to lay all of that on Pete Werner. It was a system-wide, defense-wide issue. But he's got to go back and re-earn that job, I think, this spring. And I would put him in that group. I think Jonathan Cooper, at defensive end, I would say he's got to go out and earn that job. He's a senior and a leader. But, you know, is he going to play half the plays this coming year if there are some young and hungry pass rushers coming up behind him? Last guy I'll mention is Zach Harrison, the early enrolling freshman, the top recruit that Ohio State got, national top 15 player from Orange High School, about a half hour north of Ohio State in Delaware County. And a lot of, I mean, he signed with Ohio State over Michigan and Penn State. A lot of excitement to get him on campus. I think with the depth that they have at defensive end, with a Chase Young and a Cooper and a Jayshon Cornell and Tyreek Smith and Tyler Friday, there may or may not be an opportunity for him right away. But if he comes in this spring and shows Larry Johnson that he can get to the quarterback, they won't hesitate to play him. So I think that is something that we're all going to enjoy watching this spring, is watching him kind of cut his teeth going against the varsity offensive linemen every day in the spring football and let the chips fall where they may. But there's probably 4 or 5 guys on both sides of the ball who it would behoove them to have a great spring. Some of them because it's either now or never, or because a job is open, it's there for the taking, it's theirs for the taking with a great spring. And again, some of these guys, the time is ticking into the future, and you don't want to let your entire college career go by without winning a job.
Baron Browning made his way into 9 games last season, had 3.5 tackles for loss and 1 sack. You mentioned, Steve, that it's a very, very unlikely, even with a very productive season for Browning in particular. You mentioned a few other guys, for them to jump completely from being fairly non-existent to having such a productive season that they leave after their junior season to go to the NFL draft. Would, for you, Malik Hooker, he's the first name that comes to mind when you talk about somebody that was not seeing the field, was not considered an early entry NFL type of guy, and then all of a sudden burst onto the scene, had a great season, and he's gone.
Hooker was a guy who came into the situation, I want to say in 2016, I believe, was his year. And maybe after Von Bell left, after 2015, perhaps. Maybe I've got my years.
Yeah, because he had the big interception. Well, it looked like a big interception at the time, where he ran all the way across the field against Clemson in the playoffs and intercepted that ball in the corner of the end zone.
Yes, definitely. Where we first, and this is why this time of year is so important. in that spring of 2016, Hooker had not played much in 2015 on the team that they had a great team, obviously, and a lot of guys back. Powell and Bell, I think, were both the safeties on the 2015 team. 2016, in the spring game, Hooker intercepted not one but two passes. I think at least one of them off J.T. Barrett. And I've got a photo somewhere of Barrett kind of half-heartedly chasing him down as he returned it for a touchdown in the spring game. So coming out of the spring game, there was already some buzz about Marcus Hooker coming out of that game. And then he went into the season and had just one of the best single seasons for a safety in Ohio State memory. I'd put him up there, with so many of the guys that they have had over the years, like a Mike Doss, Kurt Coleman, Von Bell, and I'm sure I'm leaving, any number of guys out that have been, maybe all Big Ten, All-American caliber guys. I think Hooker was an All-American that year at safety, at least by some of the selectors. So, and certainly went off to the NFL after that one great year. So, I think about it that he is a perfect example that you can hold up and say that, yeah, it's February, it's March, but things are determined now that will shape and change your football career by how you practice this spring. Decisions will be made. There'll be a pecking order coming out of the spring, a depth chart, so to speak, going into the start of preseason camp on August the 1st or whatever day it is, and probably late July, but whatever it may be. This time is critical for development and for guys to leap out of the pack. If everything's equal, you put the decision in the hands of the coaches. If you blow everybody away on the practice field this month that's upcoming, you've basically taken the decision out of the coaches' hands. You've made it for them that you're going to be their guy. So they're looking for people that they can trust, and I think that was a tremendous example of one guy who, through a great spring, put himself in position to have a great season and, has now set himself up for life.
Yeah, and if I remember those two plays against J.T. Barrett in the spring game, it wasn't like he just happened to be at the right place at the right time on two overthrows and it hit him right in the breadbasket. Like, he made a ridiculous run to the ball on one of them. The other one was some kind of leaping, one-handed interception. They were crazy plays. He just really established himself as a ball-hawking safety. And again, as you mentioned, Steve, one of the great safety seasons in recent Ohio State memory.